Join my cult of SaaSOps. Hello. Welcome to the SaaSOps show. You already know my fearless cohort, Brian, but we also have joining us today, Cam Stone, who is our IT automation and SaaSOps engineer at BetterCloud. Today, we will be showing you how we at BetterCloud IT automate our offboarding process when employees leave the company. Cam, can you share a few words with us?
A few words? But I would like to say I'm Cam Stone. I just started at BetterCloud about 4 months ago. And so I've been doing a lot of work when it comes to like the automation using our software at BetterCloud. So I'm here to talk a little bit about that. So yeah.
At BetterCloud, we use a combination of tools to remove access from former employees.
Nothing for you.
The main combination being our IDP, which is our identity provider, which is Okta, and of course, BetterCloud, the tool. What we use IDP for, so generally speaking, when we talk about deprovisioning, your IDP and an automation tool like BetterCloud will handle slightly different aspects of it. And so what we use our IDP for is as a source of truth for identity. And for the automated provisioning and deprovisioning of like sort of basic birthright apps and things like that, along with some of the attributes that go with those. Now, to note, you have to pay for that SKU for that type of lifecycle management. So things like Okta don't include that in their base SKU. You actually have to pay for it. So if you don't have that part of Okta or OneLogin or whatever, you may have to shift some of those things onto another platform or onto something like BetterCloud. And then what we use BetterCloud for is sort of the more granular aspects to deprovisioning. So we use it for all of the rest of the nitty-gritty, the transferring of documents to managers, the setting up of auto email replies, the reclamation of user licenses for things like Office 365, and a whole lot of more details that we'll go into in a little bit here.
Yeah, and for the most part, I mean, we're always updating the processes that we use to incorporate like new integrations, whether those are the integrations that are built by like our software engineering team, or whether those are like custom integrations that we make specifically for the applications that we use internally. So pretty much before our current setup, we use workflows primarily for like G Suite actions, and this was pre-Okta, and it took IT at least like an hour per person to be able to onboard or offboard a user, and it took about 2 to 3 hours across all teams, whether that's HR, security, and IT. And pretty much today, it takes about 1 minute of work. 1 minute of work. 1 minute of work for the IT team to just kick off a workflow that pretty much removes access across like all applications, as far as like the birthright applications that we do for our team.
I don't want to jump too far past this without calling out the fact that you just said that it used to take IT at least 1 hour per person, and it was 2 to 3 hours across our whole company. And now it takes us 1 minute.
Pretty much. Matter of seconds, actually. That's being, to be honest, it's pretty quick.
Yeah, very exciting. And as Cam mentioned, we're continuing to iterate on this. Iteration is so important with anything that touches an IT process. The field and technology continues to change. But now I actually have a very fun surprise for both of you. I've created a little trivia section. It's called
trivia, you say?
Jabe's very cool and fun trivia section.
Okay, right, let's hear these trivia questions.
What is the average number of apps deployed at a business?
Ooh, pick me.
Ooh, Brian.
100.
It's close. Any guesses, Cam?
I'm gonna go with 225.
A very specific number. I do think that for BetterCloud, we're probably in the 200 zone. But according to Okta's 2019 Business at Work report, the average number of apps deployed at their surveyed customers was 88 apps. 10% deploy over 200. What's scary about that number of, BetterCloud is one of these companies where we have probably 200 apps across our whole organization, is a lot of them don't support things like SSO, or even worse, they charge you extra for them.
Shame
Don't
on
be
you.
that.
Don't make me add you to the SSO.tax website wall of shame, because I will.
It's just rude. So my next question at James' very cool and fun trivia section. How often do ex-employees retain access to corporate applications?
I'm going to go with 20% of the time.
I'm going to go with 75% of the time.
I
have very low faith in these businesses.
It's a nice spread. So according to a 2017 report from OneLogin, survey respondents indicated 50% of ex-employee accounts remained active longer than 1 day, with 25% of the respondents saying it took them a week to fully deprof people, and 25% said they weren't even sure how long it takes to fully deprof someone.
Wow.
Scary. My last question at James' very cool and fun trivia section. How often does a failure to properly deprovision an employee contribute to a data breach?
Ooh.
I'm going to go with 1 out of 10. 10%.
I'm going to say at least 20%.
The spread is getting narrower between your answers. So in their 2019 data breach investigation report, Verizon found that ex-employees who retained privileged access contribute to 15% of the time to a data breach.
Oh,
right in the middle.
We're very good at this. It's almost like we're IT professionals.
Almost like we know a thing or two. Thank you for taking this journey with me. It took me a while to make sure I had the numbers right and had some cool stuff. Maybe this section will return in a future episode.
Oh, nice.
So now we would love to show you the actual workflow in BetterCloud that we use to deprovision our employees. Cam is going to share his screen and we're going to take a look.
All right. This is the workflow that we use in BetterCloud internally for us to deprob all of our users whenever they leave the company. So as we were saying before, it's pretty much one step that we take to offboard a user. All we do is move them to this OU, one offboard workflow, no counter deletion OU, and it kicks off all the steps that we need to take in order to disable access for all of the users that leave. So we're going to start off with Okta. As you see, it clears all of the user sessions from Okta. So if they're logged in anywhere, it's going to log them out automatically. The second step, we're going to remove all the users from the groups that they are currently in Okta. After that, we're going to move forward with resetting the multi-factor settings for each of the users that log in. All right, so the fourth step is pretty important. We're going to deactivate the users in Okta. So this pretty much disables them from accessing all of the applications that we have behind Okta. And for example, that it would be Google, it would disable their access to there, and basically any other application that we have users authenticate through Okta with.
Cam, as you mentioned, when you deactivate the Okta user, it cuts access. And so it does two things. For apps that are just SSO enabled, meaning there's no deprovisioning or provisioning, it blocks them from signing in. For the apps that we have behind Okta that are provisioning and deprovisioning enabled through Okta, it also deactivates or suspends those accounts. So the first step that we have in Google here is that we're unsuspending the user. And the reason that we're doing that is that user account was suspended in the previous step by Okta. So you deactivate the Okta user, that suspends the Google user as well. Now, in order to make the following changes that we're going to be doing to that Google account, we have to unsuspend that user first. But because Okta is disabled in the first place, that person who's left still can't access this Google account even if we unsuspend it. But the first thing that we're going to do is unsuspend the user. Then we're going to move that user to a workflow or to a org unit that is deprob in progress, that just keeps track of the users as they're going through the deprob process. we're going to send an account wipe to their mobile device. So our users for BYOD are registered in Google. We send an account wipe to remove our BetterCloud data from those devices. Then we delete the mobile device from our records. So we reset the user's password to a random value, and we require a password change on next login. So the reason that we do this is because as part of Google's API documentation, they basically say, in order to clear someone's sign-in cookies, you have to require a password change at next login. We reset their sign-in cookies to clear them out of any existing sessions they're logged into. Then in step 10, we reset their user password back to a known value, and we don't require a password change on next login so that we can take the next set of actions. The next set of actions will fail if you require a password change on next login or if you keep them in that state. So then we set an auto reply for that user, just a message saying that they no longer work there. We delete their two-step verification backup codes. We revoke all third-party apps for that user and all Google apps. We delete app-specific passwords. So if they've set up a third-party app with a more secure password, we delete those passwords. We delegate the inbox of their user to their manager using dynamic fields in BetterCloud. And we transfer all of the primary calendar events from that user to the user's manager so that they can see any upcoming meetings they had. In another version of this workflow, we just delete their calendar events if the manager said that they weren't important. Then we delete all the secondary calendars for that user. We remove them from all of the Google groups that they're in. We delete all email aliases for that user.
Yeah, so the next set of steps is we're going to start with Salesforce. So we're going to deactivate the user in Salesforce. This helps save the business systems team time when it comes to deactivating users in that system. And then after that, we're going to remove the member from our Dropbox team. And then we're going to move on to the Office 365 actions. So we're going to remove their licenses, and we're also going to disable their Office 365 account so they're not able to log into Office 365 anymore. So say if they had the Office 365 app application installed on their personal computers, it will disable them from using the software on any computer that they had it installed on. After we remove access for Office 365, we're going to move on to the Zendesk steps. We're going to sign the user out of Zendesk. We're going to reset their Zendesk password, and then we're going to move on to suspending the user inside of Zendesk. After that, we're going to execute a webhook that will pretty much remove their permissions from our demo BetterCloud, our sandbox BetterCloud environment. And then we're going to move on to disabling the users in AHA, PagerDuty, LastPass, Meraki. After Meraki, we're going to move their access from Jira Service Desk, Confluence, and Atlassian. And then we're going to send an email that pretty much just lets the team know that the account has been disabled and then the steps that we have taken to disable their accounts. And then we're going to revoke their SSO token in Zoom. We're going to deactivate the user, and also we're going to end up deleting the user in Zoom.
And Cam, could you click on the delete user? So one step that we're including in here, you can see that we both deactivate the user and delete the user. The reason that we delete the user is the delete user action in Zoom's API also allows you to do some other steps, including transferring the meeting, transferring recordings, and transferring the webinars. So in this case, we use dynamic fields in BetterCloud to transfer meetings and recordings to that user's manager. So we record a lot of, for instance, like sales calls in Zoom, and this allows those sales calls to be preserved and then sent to their manager.
And then after that, we end up moving the user to our second OU, which is pretty much another workflow that is kicked off when they're moved to that OU, and then we're going to go over that shortly. After that, we delete the user from Lessonly, Lucidchart, and Asana. And that is pretty much the workflow that we use to disable access across the majority of our birthright applications that we have here at BetterCloud. And then, as you said, that there's another workflow that is kicked off when we move them to this offboarding workflow, no calendar deletion, wait OU. Brian's going to go over the reason why we set that up and what exactly that does.
And the first step that we have here is we're going to transfer ownership of Google Drive files to the user's manager. Now, the reason that we have this in a second workflow is because if the user has quite a large number of files, it can take a really long time for those files to be transferred to the manager. The workflow will pause on this step while those files are being transferred. So in the event that they have hundreds of gigabytes of files, it could take up to a day for that step to complete. And we didn't want to clog up the previous workflow with waiting for this action. So making it the first step of a second workflow allows us to confirm that the previous workflow completed successfully. We can use notifications to say that the previous workflow has been completed, or if it was completed with errors. And then we know that this workflow has started. And then once that the files have been transferred to the user's manager, it'll proceed on with the next set of steps. And the next set of steps are basically a series of wait for durations. So we wait 30 days and then we suspend the user and we assign them a Vault former employee license. That allows us to keep their data, to retain their data for any like legal purposes that we may need, and while reclaiming their G Suite license. If you're a newer Google G Suite user, you may have a Google Archive user license instead of Vault former employee. It's just a newer change that they've made. And then we wait for a number of days after that, 60, 90 plus days, to move them into different buckets for organizational purposes. And that's the end of that workflow.
We are so thrilled to share this with you to give you a sense of how we, a very real and not fake IT team, actually manage our end user lifecycle process.
We are definitely not fake. Join us next time where we'll share how we made it easier to remotely wipe a computer and install a fresh version of the operating system on it with minimal hand-holding, interaction, very quick, very easy. Bye-bye files.
Bye-bye files. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time. Don't forget to join Better IT, the Slack community.
In the description below.
God, what am I talking about? We're going to cut this whole part out.
Oh, no, we're not. We're putting this in the end.
Do we need to get the rights to that if we?
No, this is the SaaSOps show. It's real life.
Yeah, that's what they say, but I've never seen these two people in person, so we don't.
That's true. Cam has never met either of us in person. We've met each other, so we can say that we're real, Jabes and I, but we don't know if you're real either.
What if I'm the fake one?
I knew I should have had that glass of wine.